All right, welcome back to the channel. This time we're going to get into some philosophy of time. Now, mind you, I'm not a philosopher or anything like that. I'm just a person on the internet. But a lot of people that I listen to have some different theories on time, and since it's kind of a metaphysical thing as to what you should believe and what you should do in life, I kind of like to look at these topics, and it's also kind of a contentious debate topic. Does time exist? Do we have free will, determinism, those types of topics? Depending on your metaphysical view, the answers to those questions will be quite different. Now, the first thing I wanted to get into quickly is just the concept of the Akashic Record, which seems to have been introduced at least into Western society by Helena Blavatsky, which she was part of a secretive esoteric group in the, I guess, 1800s. And she introduced this concept from the Sanskrit term Akasha, characterized it as a sort of life force. She also referred to indestructible tablets of the astral light, recording both the past and future of human thought and action. But she did not use the term Akashic. The notion of an Akashic record was further disseminated by Alfred Percy Sinnett in his book Esoteric Buddhism. Right. And then we can see Alice A. Bailey also believes the Akashic record is like an immense photographic film registering all the desires and earth experiences of our planet. Those who perceive it will see the pictured thereon, the life experiences of every human being since time began, the reactions to experience of the entire animal kingdom, the aggregation of the thought forms of a karmic nature based on desire of every human unit throughout time, and only a trained occultist can see this type of stuff always. Then we can also see that this stuff was around in Europe, in Western Europe, around the time when Einstein was working on his theories of the block universe. Rudolf Steiner, an Austrian theosophist and later founder of anthroposophy, Rudolf Steiner used the Akashic record concept mainly in a series of articles in his journal Lucifer Gnosis from 1904 to 1908, where he wrote about Atlantis and Lemuria, topics related to their purported history and civilization. Besides this, he used the term in a title of lectures on the fifth gospel held in 1913 and 1914, shortly after the foundation of the Anthroposophical Society. Okay, also Edgar Cayce was also into that. Now we can see, when did Einstein block universe theory? Einstein's concept related to the block universe theory emerged from his work on the theory of relativity, particularly in the early 20th century around 1905 to 1915. This theory suggests that time and space are intertwined in a four-dimensional spacetime where all events, past, present, and future, exist simultaneously. Right? So this is where it's kind of hard to escape determinism when you claim that the future exists. Like, that is the definition of determinism, that the future already exists. So therefore, the choices that you make in the present or past can't change the future because the future already exists. And specifically in Einstein's block universe, basically, time doesn't the movement of time is an illusion, right? It's an illusion that our consciousness experiences, and that's one of the hugest holes in this entire concept. where does the consciousness fit into these four dimensions of time, space, or space time, right? Because to me, it seems that it's a huge, gigantic waste of energy for every single event, past, present, and future, to exist simultaneously, right? The universe conserves energy in certain ways, right? And is very efficient. And that seems like the most inefficient thing. And okay, so maybe you want to claim that consciousness exists outside of the brain and the brain is just receiving consciousness. Still, right? It just doesn't really clock the fact that your consciousness exists in every single and every millisecond can be broken down into further smaller fractions of time, right? Like Zeno's paradox, where you can keep going halfway, halfway to halfway, and then halfway to another halfway, and then halfway to another halfway, and you never arrive at the actual place. And so the amount of slices of time that you can imagine would exist in which your entire consciousness and the entire consciousness of every single conscious being in the entire universe would have to exist simultaneously, using all that energy, all that time, all the time, forever, infinitely, into from one side of space to the other, from one side of time to the other, in an infinite amount of divisible slices of time, right? Because the block universe doesn't even make sense. Where's the divisions in the blocks? Where's the division? Is it a millisecond? Is it one of these what's it called, a Planck second, a Planck instant? Because a Planck instant can still be divided in half. Everything can be divided in half. You can always divide everything in half. If it exists, it can be divided in half. Right. And that's why I don't even believe in the Planck length, because it's arbitrary. It's completely arbitrary. Oh, this is the smallest unit. Well, why can't we just divide that in half mathematically? Why can't we, whatever the smallest unit is, why can't we just put a division sign next to it and then a 2 and divide it in half? Because it's just a theory, right? It's just a mathematical theory. Okay. Maybe someone can explain that to me. So then we're going to go on to eternalism. Eternalism is the philosophy of space and time. Is an ontological view according to which all existence in time is equally real, as opposed to presentism or the growing block universe theory of time, in which at least the future is not the same as any other time. Some forms of eternalism give time a similar ontology to that of space as a dimension, with different times being as real as different places, right? Like their coordinates on a map. Like you can just, that's why the whole time travel thing, it's like, oh, you just type in the place and the time, and it's just a coordinate that you can travel to on a map just like any other place. Like it doesn't have a different ontological status as the present. The future and the past don't have a separate ontological status. They have the same ontological status as the present. But then again, it goes back to determinism, right? Because if the choices that you're making in the past or in the present don't affect the future, it's deterministic. And that means that you don't have free will. That means that you don't have the choice between moral rights and wrongs, right? Because all of your decisions, all of your actions, everything you think was determined at the beginning or at the end of time, whichever way you want to say it. If it was determined at the end of time and then sent backwards, but you can't say it was sent backwards because time has no motion, right? In this theory, time doesn't move. So the concept of being sent back, information being sent back, would apply emotion, right? Sent back is emotion. But so information can't be sent back in time or sent forward in time in this theory, because the universe is just a block of every event already happening and having the exact same ontology, right? Every instant is just as real as the other instant. Even all these micro fraction of a fraction of a fraction instants that you just cannot calculate because the time is fluid as it appears to us, right? So there's not a delineation between 1 second and the next second. It's kind of like in music, right? Where the 1 and the 4 at the end of a 4-bar measure are the same thing, right? When you go 1, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 is 1. 4 and 1 are the same thing. So, the ontology of the instances, there is no way to divide the instances into slivers or blocks in which your consciousness exists in each one of these blocks separately, right? In each one of these little slices of time separately, because where's your consciousness, right? And okay, if you're like an atheist, you don't believe in consciousness, that's fine. But if you believe that there's a consciousness, and then the consciousness just believes that it's moving through time, even though time doesn't actually move, and the consciousness is, because then if the time doesn't move and the consciousness is in every instance of time, just think of the amount of energy that it would take to keep your consciousness in every instance of time. That's an infinitely divisible amount of instances. It's the same reason why I don't believe in the multiverse, because like how they have it like in Back to the Future, where if each slight variation in time creates a branching off of a new time frame, right? Then that would mean that every strand of fiber on your shirt would create a billion, trillion, quadrillion to the 25th billionth power multiverses for each strand of fabric on your clothing. Not to mention every micro millisecond that you exist would also create a billion, trillion, quadrillion multiverses, right? And it's like, where is the energy coming from to do all of this, right? And you could say, well, you can't see everything. Okay, I can't see air either, right? But that doesn't mean that air's not there, for one, that air's not affecting the drag and all this other stuff, right? Just because you can't see something doesn't mean that you're at a disadvantage, right? Okay, we can't see all of the light in the universe. So what? It's not affecting us. So that's our brain is designed to cancel out things that don't affect us. It's just designed to do that. Like that's why if you hear like repetitive sounds over and over again, eventually your brain will literally just block it out. That's why when people get tinnitus and they hear that high-pitched sound, eventually your brain just cancels out you being able to hear that sound. And that's why people with tinnitus feel like they're going deaf, because their brain, well, it's actually, you are going deaf because the silica in your ear was damaged. But also, once you hear that ringing, your brain will just cancel it out eventually, is what I'm getting at. So that's could be an explanation to why we can't see past a certain range of light, because beyond that, the objects that would reflect that light that we would be able to see can't affect us, right? Like you don't bump into air, so therefore you don't need to see air. But I'm sure if air was harmful to humans and it was something, our brain would adapt to be able to see it. Right? I'm getting way off track here, though. Okay. We're going to get back to the space-time thing. Okay. So we can see, as I've been saying, you just cannot escape determinism when you're saying that the future already exists. Determinism is the metaphysical view that all events within the universe or multiverse can occur only in one possible way, right? Because it was set in motion at the beginning of the universe. The molecules are the only molecules and energy that exist in the universe, and it's been set in motion. And once it's been set in motion, there's no changing it, right? And even what you think are your brain processes and you speaking, making decisions, believing in God, making moral decisions, right? All of that is just an illusion. And in fact, you're just a robot that was that was set in motion by the Big Bang, right? Deterministic theories throughout the history of philosophy have developed from diverse and sometimes overlapping motives and considerations. Like eternalism, determinism focuses on particular events rather than the future as a concept. See, because the future is not a concept in these type of things. It's a location. Determinism is often contrasted with free will, although some philosophers argue that the two are compatible. How? How can it be compatible if the future is already determined and there's only one possible future? Then the concept of free will is completely destroyed, right? And then that means even for a religious person, you can't choose to worship God. You don't choose to, right? Because you don't have free will because the future was already determined. And that's why I don't believe in a chess player type of God, because of determinism takes away your free will. The concept of free will can't even exist in a system where there's only one possible future, right? And like it's kind of like analogous to those old video games. Remember where they used to like have a light up area and they would have all the positions where Mario could be, and then the one would light up when you're at that specific location, right? Right. And then we'll look at conservation of energy. The law of conservation of energy states that the total energy of an isolated system remains constant. It is said to be conserved over time. In the case of a closed system, the principle says that the total amount of energy within the system can only be changed through energy entering or leaving the system, right? So how can you change a system that is already completely done, like the block universe, right? If you have this block universe where there can be no change because all of time already exists as a real thing, right? All of time is already filling all of space because every possible action has been done based on whatever possible actions could have happened from the Big Bang, right? So there's no extra energy to change anything. So it's, again, just completely deterministic, right? And it just goes counter to what we even see in reality, that the universe seems to be generating more energy, right? And that humans can generate energy, right? And the energy coming from, a cell, at the conception of a human is an amazing and almost like, I guess, science defying feat of nature that this much energy can be produced. Like when the sperm hits the egg, it's like basically like similar to like a nuclear bomb type of energy that's being released as those two cells combine and then form and start to create the single cell of the new person. And then the cell division happens. It's like this energy it's not just, oh, you're transferring the woman's uterine lining into a human being. Like there's something else going on there beyond just classical physics, I would say. And so, it's just observable. It's observable that time, of course time's not moving, but things are breaking down over time, eroding. And then, you also have like, what's it called? The law of entropy, where systems are changing over time, dispersing and then reorganizing over time. And that's what's happening, is that the systems themselves are creating the time. Like when you walk somewhere, you're creating space. Like when you go from one place to another, you're creating the space that you need to go to that place, right? In time. And like, sure, I can accept the idea that probably more than likely some type of ultra hyper superposition is more likely than this block universe. Like I'm more willing to accept like a hyper superposition where the entire universe really is just one atom or one particle, and the appearance of energy and time and everything moving is completely false. But that would mean that everything is still in one place, where this block universe theory is claiming that space exists, right? If space and time exist, but they're a solid like object, and you can't really change that solid object because there's only one possible interpretation of that object based off of what happened at the Big Bang and causal chains, right? Then free will is destroyed at that point. But if you have superposition where it's basically like an imaginary universe, because everything is still in one place, and space and time are actually an illusion in themselves, I'm more likely to accept that than the block universe. So anyway, I think I've kind of covered it here. Obviously, this is inconclusive philosophy talk, just my theories on the subject and why I am basically against this type of view of time philosophically, because you have to do some serious backflips to fit consciousness and free will into a block universe or any type of predetermined universe, be it a block universe, Akashic record, this eternalism concept, a super high degree of chess player god prophecy type of stuff. So yeah, thanks for watching the video. Appreciate it. Have a good day and peace.